Hello guys, in this video we will do front-end authentication for our project. Front-end authentication has three main parts. First, I'm going to make AJAX requests to the backend with authenticatable piece of information. For example, a token from cookies or local storage, and we're going to attach that token as authorization header. The next step is to create a middleware that will allow to visit protected pages if user information exists in the application store. For example, we can create a higher order function that will wrap protected components or pages. Finally, we need to be able to redirect user away from a protected page and prevent access if authenticatable piece of information becomes invalid. For example, tokens expires, right, during the AJAX request. So essentially when we get a 401 response from the backend. Since we started talking about 401 response status code, let's be sure we know the differences between 401 and 403 response status codes. 401 unauthorized is the status code to return when the client provides no credentials or invalid credentials. And 403 forbidden is the status code to return when a client has valid credentials but not enough privileges to perform an action on a resource. So applicable to our case, we need to react to 401 and not 403. Okay, let's get started. So if we go to Access client file, we can see that we already did step 1 in our previous video where we created package and uploaded it to npm. So right here we're getting access token and use the function get tokens, and this is an abstraction that comes from the package, and we really don't care where it gets access token. But as soon as the access token is there, we are attaching it as authorization header to all Access requests. In components folder, let's go ahead and create with authentication.tsx file, and this will have a with authentication function. This with authentication function will take the wrapped component and it's gonna return user is not authenticated function. So let's go ahead and define that function. So we'll need user ID that we're gonna be getting it from the store. We'll get loading from the store as well. And finally, we'll need a navigate function and get it from use navigate hook. So now let's create a use effect. And this use effect will be reacting to changes in loading and user ID. So if there is no loading and not user ID, we're going to navigate user to the index page. So we're assuming we made a request, but we couldn't get any authenticated user. So if we have loading state, then we will create a loading overlay. There is a component called loading overlay in maintain. So we'll put it visible and overlay blur to 2. So next thing, I'm going to check if there is user ID. We will return that wrapped component with all the props. Okay, now let's go ahead and return user is not authenticated function and export default with authentication. Now we're going to go to dashboard TSX and we're going to export default with authentication, and that will take dashboard. Now let's go to server.ts file in the backend, and we have a sleep function. Let's uncomment that. It will help us to check if the loading state is working. So, and then in app get API user, we're going to create the conditional where we check if header's authorization is present. Then we're going to return the user ID, all right, and the name John. And if not, we will return status 404 not found. Let's go ahead and run pnpm run dev. Looks like everything got built successfully. Let's go to localhost 3001, and we can also see that we have an access token stored in a cookie. So if we click to the go to dashboard, we are allowed to see the dashboard. Now let's go ahead and update the code to see if loading state is showing. Let's try going in now. Okay, and we see that we have the state is loading is there. Now let's go ahead and remove the cookie and see if we are allowed to see the dashboard. Let's go ahead, refresh it, and again, we're not allowed to see the dashboard unless we have an access token. So let's go ahead and put the access token back. Refresh. And now we're able to go to dashboard. Now let's go ahead and code the third part where we redirect user away when token expires. So we're going to go into Axios client file and create an interceptor. Axios has interceptors that take two functions. The first function is with a response and the second function with an error. So when we have a response, we'll just return response. But when we have an error, we're going to check if this error has status of 401 unauthenticated, and then we're going to take the user store and set state to ID of undefined, name also undefined, and the loading is false. All right. Also, we'll have to erase cookie, that access token cookie, and then we're going to delete the headers, the authentication header from our Ajax Axios calls. And one more thing, we're going to go into store in a user store and grab the function that makes an API call to get the user, and we'll move it into Axios client file. Otherwise, we'll be having a circular dependencies. Now let's go to dashboard and create a test button that will make a request to the server, and we will check if it's going to work, when the token expires, or invalid if it's going to redirect us back to the index page. So for that, we're going to be using use query, and we're going to be hitting the slash API message endpoint. And also we'll pass the enabled property, and this enabled property is really, if we set it to false, will prevent use query to make a request on the component load. So it's not going to be making any requests. So let's create a type message as well, so we can get rid of that error. And also enabled, we actually put this property in the wrong place. Let's put it where it's supposed to be. Now let's go ahead and create a button component. I'll just give a margin top of 2em. Loading also going to be is loading, and on click we're going to have a get message function. Let's go ahead and create this get message function. I will simply set enabled to true so use query can make a request. Now let's go and see if redirect part works. Let's go to localhost 3001. We can refresh it. We'll go to dashboard, and here's the button. We'll click the button and nothing happens. And I guess it would be helpful if we display the message that we received from the server. Let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, let's try it again. Oh, and we already see the message, welcome John. So now let's go ahead and go to the server.ts file. And in the message right over here, we can return 401 unauthorized. Now let's go ahead and test it again. So Looks like it already kicked us out, so it seems like it's working, but let's go and double check it. All right, we got the token, so now we can go to dashboard. If we click on get message button, we will receive 401, supposed to kick us out and remove the access token cookie. Let's do that. It seems like it worked. Now if we click go to dashboard, it's not gonna allow us to do that anymore. Let's go ahead and remove 401 response and save. And this is how you do front-end authentication with React application. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.